Hey there Atlanta, this is Michael Moore, your sports reporter for ATL in 60 Seconds once again, and this is another episode of ATL in 60 Seconds Sports Showdown. And in this episode of Sports Showdown, we had two teams that really had their backs against the wall this week. We had the Atlanta Falcons, who started out the week 1-3. They really needed a victory coming in, and also the people that had their back against the wall the most had to be the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves started out the postseason 0-2. They cannot afford to take another loss. Which one of those teams got a win and which one of those teams got a loss? Let's dive in right into it. So starting out with the Atlanta Falcons, they had a pretty tough road to go against with the Pittsburgh Steelers, as they had to play in Pittsburgh. And once again, they're having to play with a pretty depleted defense, and that was really the story of this game, of how the Falcons really couldn't get a stop, and they really even struggled to get a couple of points on the board. You had Matt Ryan, who was able to get a couple of tosses into some of his receivers, though. The most key person was Austin Hooper, who was really the only one who could really get it going for the Falcons. He had 77 yards on a couple of first down conversions. And overall, the Falcons were only able to put up 17 points. The Pittsburgh Steelers really lit it up with Antonio Brown, who started out not having that many receptions. He only had 6 receptions overall, but he had 2 touchdowns for 101 yards. Matt Ryan going 285 yards with only 1 touchdown. And it was really too bad. Julio Jones really couldn't get anything going. He had 62 yards, no touchdowns in the game there. One of the key differences was really the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to get a running game going. The Atlanta Falcons were not. The Pittsburgh Steelers had 131 yards rushing. The Falcons only had 62. But we weren't able to get a lot of those third down conversions like we were in the past couple weeks for the Atlanta Falcons. So that was a pretty tough loss for the Falcons. Luckily, they are going to have another chance next week to play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have also been struggling just a little bit. They're 2-2 right now. So the Falcons are able to get a little more momentum going before they hit the bye week period by week 8. They can keep their postseason hopes alive. And speaking of keeping their postseason hopes alive, the Atlanta Braves had a great opportunity here at SunTrust Park. This was their very first playoff game at SunTrust Park, and they delivered. We had Ronald Acuna hitting a grand slam, one of the key moments of the game, probably one of the best moments ever. He is one of the youngest players in Atlanta Braves history, or maybe even in all of Major League Baseball history, to hit a grand slam in a postseason game, because he is only 20 years old. It was incredible. And the person who could really seal the game for the Braves was Freddie Freeman, one of the key players for the Atlanta Braves, maybe even one of the, I guess you can say, the MVPs for the Atlanta Braves. I don't know, you kind of bounce between him and Ronald Acuna, but Freeman was able to hit a solo shot for a home run to put them ahead 6-5, because the Dodgers did come back. They had a lot of patient at-bats, and they took advantage of a lot of key moments, but the Braves were able to seal the victory with Vizcaino being able to keep the victory here for the Atlanta Braves, as he was able to strike out the last batter. We also had the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets beating up the Louisville Cardinals pretty badly, 66-31. Over 500 yards of rushing yards for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They had 542. That is just from rushing yards alone. They only had 12 passing yards. They really showed that their running attack can really be a big problem if you can't stop them. Another team that just cannot be stopped, the Georgia Bulldogs. Once again, they are now at the number 2 position overall in the country after beating the Vanderbilt Commodores 41-13. This was another huge victory for the Georgia Bulldogs, and another in-conference win. They are 4-0 in the conference. And next up, they're going to be playing against the LSU Tigers. This is probably going to be the biggest game that they've had in a while. And following that is going to be the Florida game. So this is definitely not over for the Georgia Bulldogs. It's not just going to be a stroll in the park. But this game definitely was, as Jake Fromm had 276 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. That's got to be one of his best passing performances yet this year, or this season. And Elijah Holyfield led the running backs with 64 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. And to end the day, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Hawks. They were able to play another preseason game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and we had a familiar face they got to play against, and that was Dennis Schroeder, who had 20 points during that game, and he pretty much outplayed Trae Young, who only had 16. But Trae Young is a rookie. He had a really good experience in the run here, and it's only a matter of time until the Hawks are able to have their regular season schedule put together. So stay tuned for ATL in 60 seconds. We're going to have a lot more coming for you later on. So stay tuned in. This is once again Michael Moore, your sports reporter for ATL in 60 seconds.